Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss about the academic writing style. It is important especially for students who want to graduate from their institution in which they have to write their final papers or thesis. Alright, so the first thing that we are going to discuss is about what the academic writing style is. In 2004, Swells and Fick defined the academic writing style as a form of writing with standardized requirements for academic purpose, which is formal, factual, and objective. So here we can see that there are at least three characteristics of the academic writing style. In later slides, we will discuss more than these three slides. We can find this academic writing style in our reference books, in the students' papers and theses, in journals and the legal documents, and it should be clearly differentiated from the other informal writing, like the one that we usually do when we write our status or comments in the social media, or like when we read the literary works like in prose, poetry, or drama. They do not apply the academic writing style there. It's more like the free writing style. So, what are the differences between the academic writing style and the free writing styles? There are several differences. The first one is that the academic writing style certainly uses the grammatical senses properly. When we write something, we can directly detect the errors or the mistakes that we've done, and we still can revise it. It's different from the spoken language. And then later in the academic writing style, we need to apply the writing sequences systematically. In paragraph, we have to start by writing the topic sentence, followed with the supporting sentences, and ends with the concluding sentence. While in essays, we start with the introductory paragraph, followed with the body paragraphs, and ends with the concluding paragraph. And then later in the informal free writing, usually people start sentences with but, and, or. We cannot do that in the academic writing style because those are coordinating conjunctions that you can use only in the middle of the sentences. And then informal free writing will usually reveal the use of simple words repetitively. So there will be some kind of repetitions of the same words over and over. And usually the sentence will start subjectively with the pronouns like I or we, which should be avoided in the academic writing style. And the last one is, of course, in informal free writing, the writer usually uses slang words, which is informal and cannot be used in the academic writing style. Alright, so let's discuss about the characteristics of the academic writing styles. I've already tried to conclude the 6 characteristics of the academic writing. First one, it must be formal. And then it is factual and relational with other writings. It is cautious. It is succinct. It's subjective and impersonal. And the last one is the academic writing is grammatically and semantically correct. Now let's see one by one. Alright, so the first characteristic is being formal. What are the criteria in formal writing? The first one is technically related to the look of the writing itself. So you must not use any inappropriate font types or size like Algerian or Bookman Old Style or Comic Sans or Papyrus, okay? You might want to make your writing as attractive, as interesting as possible, but that's not the point. People will be tired seeing so many different kinds of font types used in the writing, and also maintain consistent size of the font. The next one, you should not use the colloquial or idiomatic and even slang language because those are informal. So instead of using those informal ones, you have to find the correspondence words in formal ways. For example, couple of, you can change into some or several, and then piece of cake into easy or simple, gonna, wanna into going to or want to, and go nuts into go insane or be very angry. Okay, so try to change these kinds of daily conversational words into the more formal ones. And then next is not to use contractions except for the possessive ones. For example, you cannot use can't Okay, can apostrophe t. You must use the whole words cannot. Hasn't into has not. Would have into would have. Even for some words which is also shortened into like TV, you must use the longer version, television, vocab into vocabulary. This rule does not apply to possessions like my father's. You have the apostrophe s to show the possession there. It's okay. Daniel's books, for example, it's okay to use the apostrophe s. It's not contraction. And then next, use the acronyms and the initials correctly. Usually when you use the acronyms or initials, you don't put dots between letters. Okay? U.F.O. That is wrong. Just write down all the capital letters. UFO. The same with the IQ, the ABI, USA, and the Y. You don't need the dots. And then next, we have to avoid using the common abbreviations. This is usually done often to shorten the time of writing. For example, the use of EG, exempli gracia, which actually means for example or for instance. And then you have the ETC, etc. Just write down and so forth. And then IE, it is, just use that is. And then VS for versus. And then vis or vidalice for namely, and the symbol and. Just write down the words. And then you better not use or write any questions or comments in the formal writing. Just make sure that all of the informations or sentences are in form of declarative sentence, so not in questions forms, especially the rhetorical one, because it's just wasting times and words. And the last one, it's better to use more sophisticated words, not the plain ones. Okay? For example, instead of using many or much, you can use the word enormous. Instead of great, you can use excellent or remarkable. And then you can use obtain or acquire to replace get, and then possess to change have. And then you can also replace make with construct and produce. So this is all about the formal writing. Now let's move on to the next characteristics. That is factual and relational with other writings. So basically, there is not any completely or totally original kinds of writing. Normally, the writing itself builds on what others have previously done or thought about the same object. Therefore, using someone else's ideas in your writing, you have to include the quotation and citations correctly. And later in the future, this academic writing might be beneficial for the other writers. They might quote and cite your writings. That's why what you have written down must be relevant and accurate. Alright, so now let's go to the next characteristic, which is cautious. Being cautious means that you have to be careful of what you are going to write. First thing that you have to keep in mind is to be open-minded. Okay, instead of using words or phrases which is kind of strong in matter of opinion, you can use hedging, the way you share your opinion. For example, instead of writing this point is correct because blah blah blah, you can use the phrases like it seems that this point is correct blah blah blah. Or you can use the adverbs like this point is likely correct since blah blah blah. Students should generally wonder about things rather than being certain. That's why they need to use the hedging. Next is do not stereotype or make assumptions. So it's better to be neutral if the situation is possible. For example, instead of writing down fireman, policeman, mankind, chairman, which is in terms of gender refers only to the man, we can use the more natural ones like firefighter, police officer, humankind, or chairperson. As long as the situation, the conditions allow you to be neutral, do it. And then next one is to not use some kind of generalization. Therefore, we can use these qualifying adjectives or adverbs to specify parts and to avoid making the overgeneralizations. For example, instead of saying women are worse drivers than men, which can be indicated as all women, we can use some or most, something like that. Today everyone uses credit cards to blah blah blah. Instead of using everyone, we can use most people, because not everyone uses the credit cards, right? So you have to be careful of the choice of words that you use in your writing. Alright, so let's go to the next characteristic. The academic writing should be succinct. It means that the writer needs to avoid some unnecessary words. The words must be precise and concise in telling what the writer wants to say. First is by using the simple effective words. So rather than saying really tired, you can say exhausted. Really big can be replaced with enormous. This kind of wordy words can be prevented. Instead of using two words, just use one word with the same meaning. The next one is do not use double negatives. Double negatives means positive. So instead of using negative entities, it's better to just make it positive. For example, instead of using it is not uncommon that blah blah blah, you can say it is common that blah blah blah. So the not here will negate the "ant." Or this cannot show nothing at all. It means that this can show something. So instead of creating some kind of confusion to the readers and make the readers frustrated in understanding the meaning, you better avoid using the double negatives. Next one is you must be specific and to the point. You need to be precise and concise. Instead of using people, it's better to specify it into the students or the citizens or the workers or any other specific reference. Thus, the readers will find it easier to understand the reference. Now, let's go to the fifth characteristic, which is being objective and impersonal. What does it mean by being objective and impersonal? First that you have to do is you have to focus on the third parties. Okay, so use the third personal pronouns like he or she or they instead of using first I or we or slightly second parties you. You have to be objective. Next, you have to use passive sentences because the passive sentence will focus on the actions or the effects rather than the doers, rather than the subject who does the actions. The tests have been conducted. You are focusing on the object, the task. The subject are not that important. And then to prevent using the subject pronoun, you can use some kind of impersonal subjects like it or there. It is believed that, it appears that, or there is a possibility that. So those are impersonal subjects. Okay. Now we go on to the last characteristic of the academic writing, which is the writing that is grammatically and semantically correct. Grammatically talks about the grammar, the structure of the sentence, while semantically deals with the meaning of the sentence itself. The first thing is you have to use the correct verb tense. Whether it is in present or in the past situations, the verb following the subject must concord. And then you have to use the correct word type. When do you use the adjective, when you use the adverb, or the verb itself, okay? The adjective must be used to explain or describe the nouns, while the adverbs is used to describe the verb or the whole sentence or the adjective or the other adverbs. Okay, you must know the functions of each of the parts of speech. And then, of course, because this is writing, the composition that is read by people, you have to use proper capitalization and punctuation. Okay, just like in speaking, you have intonation and pauses. In writing, you must show it by putting the punctuations correctly and the capitalization to emphasize important things in the writing, in the sentences or in the paragraphs. And the last one is avoid using too many simple sentences. If you use too many simple sentences, it will confuse the readers. So it's better to combine with the compound sentences or the complex sentences or compound complex sentences. Use the conjunctions, okay? and prevent creating errors. You know there are mainly 3 kinds of errors: run-on sentence, comma splice, and fragment. Because this is writing, before you finalize your writing, it's better to read and reread again to prevent this kind of errors. Okay, you can ask someone else to read your compositions as proofreader to help you minimize this kind of errors. Okay, so we have already discussed all 6 characteristics of academic writing that differentiate it with the other free writing style. The sources of our discussion today can be seen here. Hopefully it helps. Thank you.